Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on my channel, Women of a Certain Age. I am Daheen, and on this channel, we celebrate Generation X with joy and confidence. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the generation gap and what does that look like, and how can we connect instead of having a gap, maybe building a bridge where we can learn from one another. I will be looking off to my left to make sure that I cover all of my notes, but also a little bit of freestyling as I continue to learn and get into the groove of vlogging. So, what are the generations? I want to specifically highlight Generation X and Millennials and a little bit of Gen Z. So, we know that Generation X is 1965 to 1980, which is my generation. Then you have Millennials, which is 1981 to 1986, and Gen Z 1997 to 2012. So we're dealing with age ranges of 13 to 28, 29 to 44, and 45 to 60. The age range younger than me, or older than me, I should say, are boomers, but we're not going to discuss them as much on this particular vlog. So, have you ever had an experience where you have interacted with someone that was a different generation from you and you thought to yourself, either they're too old or they're too young? And it may show because it shows in a way that is something that you wouldn't do. And maybe you were being maybe a little judgmental because you felt like, this is not good. I'll give you an example. I was working with someone and there was some music that came on, and it was the latest hip hop. I can't tell you who the person was, but as a native New Yorker, I grew up, hip hop was, it. As I've gotten older, I still like hip hop, but it's just certain stuff I don't understand, I'm not going to listen to. But this particular song was on, and we had to do an activity connecting I guess, bridging the age gaps together. And when this particular song came on, the person wanted to act out something to this song. And they kept asking me if I knew this song, or was this song too young, or it was just something along those lines. Um, and I've seen it the other way as well, where a song comes on and it could be an oldie but goodie, and someone of my generation or older would say something like, "You don't know nothing about that song." So it goes both ways. But in this case, they kept asking me, "Did I know this song?" And I, my assumption was it was vital to them because they wanted to make sure that I was going to be able to do what was required with this song because there were steps to it. In a case like that, what is that, or how does that make you feel? When they first said it to me, I kind of was in my head like, let's just get on with the song. It can't be that hard. Let's just move on. But this person continued to make comments about not personally my age, but my group of people and the age, because my age and their age is a 30-year difference. Because I remember them saying that their birthday was something coming up and they were in the early 20s. And I thought at that moment, is this how others may feel if someone makes a comment about because they're a certain age, they don't possibly or couldn't possibly know this, or they're too young for this, or they're too young for that, or someone talking about calling people children when they're actually adults, whether young adults or not, they are adults. Now, are there or is there a lot of growing to do? Absolutely. But would you consider it disrespectful for someone to say that? Or someone would say, you're too old. How would you feel about that? It's kind of awkward, isn't it? I think it would be. I think that we would want to give the same respect. And particularly if there's a conversation but two different age, let's say millennial and Gen X, and it's possible that Gen X is talking to a millennial that is younger than their oldest child. It's almost like they don't feel like they have to give them that respect. I don't know. But if they're an adult and y'all work in the same space, respect is necessary because I would imagine you would want them to give you the same respect as well. Right? I think. I don't know. Tell me how you feel. And a lot of this has come up over the past couple of weeks. Like, what does that look like? I was talking to someone else and they said that they are younger, but they are in charge. And when they are conversing with this particular guy, it's hard for him to receive because he is so much older than this person. And when I had a conversation with the guy, he was saying that it was difficult for him to receive from this person. And I said, well, that causes a problem because they have a job to do. And if you can't respect that they've been put in this space to supervise, it's going to be a bigger issue down the road. And it can't be because of their age. It's clear, I would like to believe that they're in a position because they were appointed for a reason. How do we work on those mindsets? How do we work on those values? Because the work value and the work ethics are different as well. Millennials, there's so much that I admire about millennials, but one of the things I do admire about them that my generation wasn't necessarily taught. Now, as we've got older, we realize, okay, I'm not dealing with this, or I'm not putting up with this. But it is you find that good office job and you stay there till the wheels fall off. That's not always the case because there are times where while you're waiting for the wheels to fall off, they'll take the wheels off and let you go. And that's a hard feeling, You have committed and dedicated your life. I saw something on Instagram. I wish I had put the insert in there. But this guy had worked at a plant for 30 years, and they sent the manager or somebody in to let him know that he was being laid off and that he would not receive his pension. And he worked there for 30 years. Now, is that fair? Like, he gave them 30 years of his life. He was getting ready to retire, and they told him that he basically had nothing to show for those 30 years. So now he has to go and get another job. That's not fair. But from a millennial standpoint, or maybe even a Gen Z standpoint, they're less likely to stay at a job for 30 years. If it doesn't work for them or if it doesn't suit them, they are vocal and have no problems with letting you know this is not working for me. Now, while some may criticize or say that's not how you do it or you don't burn bridges, some are like they rather burn a bridge because if they burn it, that means that they won't go back over it because that's how bad they don't like the space that they were in. I'm not here to say who's right or who's wrong, but I get it. I get it. To be in a position of being, let go and then you have nothing to show for it, or maybe you didn't necessarily make the right choices. In this day and age, of course, we have remote. there's so many options in terms of not being in the office. Some people don't like being in the office. They prefer to be out free. Um, I personally, I wouldn't mind a combination, but I don't want to be home remote for all 5 days. I have to be connected with somebody some kind of way, because I would have to really work on that discipline piece and what does that look like, and set boundaries, because my challenges I've had remote where I was working around the clock, and that can be exhausting. So, communication styles is another one. How do we communicate? How do we share? Um, I was talking to somebody the other day. I hadn't seen them in a while. And when I saw them, I was like, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. Are you okay? And they said, yeah, they needed to take a day off. Or it was actually a week. They needed a week for, I think they said a mental rest day or something like that, which can be a good thing. Um, but at the same time, who's doing the work while this is taking place? Does that mean, is my mental rest week affecting somebody else, or is it just called a vacation and they said they just needed that time to get their head on straight or think clearly or something along those lines? My generation is learning to understand that a little bit more, but my parents' generation, they wouldn't understand anything like that. Like, they would literally work to the point where they would bleed out. Like, the thought process of calling out sick or um, not coming in for whatever reason is few and far between for them. Like, they don't take vacations. They work, 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 work. They have, I remember my mom telling me that at her job they had PTO time, and she had so much time that she was able to give some of her time to somebody else, because, which was a blessing. I think the person got sick or something and they needed more time. So she was able to give them some time, and still had enough time to burn that she did not use. So the work ethic is different as well, because you may have, I don't know about millennials, maybe Gen Z, where uh, if they don't want to come in that day, they're not coming in. And they're not concerned about who's going to do the work for the most part. They're like, okay, they don't, whatever they're feeling at that moment, they can't make it in. And whoever's at the office will figure it out, or they'll wait till they get back. Um, that's definitely a different mindset than my generation. What about dating? Because if you are dating, uh, no judgment here, but if you are dating someone that is in a different generation, depending on how many years, there's going to be a different mindset about that as well. Tech, uh, everything is tech. So in the newer generations, instead of giving a phone number, they may ask for your Instagram handle or your TikTok handle. Now, that could go either way, because maybe, let's say you give them your handle and they get to know a little bit about you. Um, then are they going to take the time out to learn more about you, or are they going to assume they know everything about you because they looked at your page? That's a little challenging, because I would imagine that your page is personal unless you just really don't care. And then you have somebody that you may have an interest in, and they're looking at everything about you just to see. And then are they going to ask you questions, or are they going to um, look at what you've posted and think that's who you are? because we know oftentimes that social media is not all the truth, not always the truth. Let's see, what else? What can Gen X learn from millennials, and what can millennials learn from Gen X? I think that Gen X could possibly be mentors in certain areas, because there's some things that millennials can be mentors to Gen X about. Um, from a tech standpoint, maybe they can help with that. Um, we know that the younger generation has always had computers, not necessarily millennials, but let's say Gen Z have always had computers. Gen Alpha and Beta, that there's never been a time where they did not know computers or social media for that matter. Um, if social media was around when Gen X, when we first started, it would have been a hot mess. And I think sometimes we forget that because, yeah, I'm going to just leave that alone. But there's so much that we can learn from each other. How do we share out with each other? How do we connect with each other? Have conversations. I would suggest that you connect with someone that is across generation and just ask questions. Just see what that's like. Oftentimes, I know my parents' generation aren't big on sharing stuff that they've gone through, and a lot of them don't necessarily um, subscribe to. It's changing, but many of them don't necessarily subscribe to um, therapy. So they stuff a lot down. They don't want to talk about it because they don't see the reason or what's the purpose of talking about certain things. Um, so I would like to close with a suggestion of us connecting cross generation and seeing how we can share out with one another, and talk about the things. Is it possible that maybe you, and if you're blessed enough, um, maybe you still have your parents around, maybe you can have a conversation. I'm talking about particularly like Gen X and boomers, because now is the time when we start getting into our 50s, where um, a lot of our parents um, have passed away, or we are caregivers to our parents, to just ask questions. Like, this is the perfect time of, things you might want to know. Or I remember I was a caregiver for my mom for a short period of time. And I remember asking her questions, and she was very forthcoming, but I could also tell that she didn't necessarily want to share certain things she didn't want to talk about. And I honored that, but I really do wish I had of not push, but maybe explain to her why I wanted to know these stories, because I get to know a little bit more about what she was like, or what her experiences was. And she did share a lot, but I just really wish that I had that time where I could have asked her a little bit more. So, with that being said, I hope that you can connect with someone cross generation. Doesn't necessarily even have to be in your family, family of friends. I just like to listen to stories of my elders, and um, hear them talk about certain things. And I ask you, as you do that, that you have grace for them, because you got to remember that they lived in a different generation. So sometimes they may say some stuff that is out of pocket. And that doesn't mean that you're condoning what they're saying, but we're giving them grace to understand, because hopefully one day we'll be there as well. So, with that being said, thank you for joining me. I hope you like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification buttons, as well as leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching this from. Thank you, be blessed, and have a great week.